I was sitting out on my back porch the other morning having coffee, and it started to rain. And I thought, when was the last time that I ever played in the rain? It must have been when I was a little kid. And then I thought, when you're a kid, if it's warm enough to wear swimming trunks, the pool's warm enough to swim, and we would go swimming no matter what. But as adults, we resist it. We just kind of watch. Maybe we'll dip our feet, but we're not really interested in swimming like we were when we were kids. And even drinking water, right? As kids, we would ask for a cup of water before we went to bed, but as adults, we avoid water like it's the plague. We know we need it to survive. We're supposed to drink like 2 gallons a day or something, but we find some sort of magic serum that we add to 12 ounces and it just barely gets us through the day. There's this weird tension, that these two diametrically opposed views of water between children and adults. And that got me thinking about how the Bible also has diametric views on water. We see in creation that it's part of life. It is the home to living creatures. We know that we need water for our crops to thrive. We need water to drink. We would dig wells before we had Culligan delivery service, and we would travel every day to and from the well carrying buckets of water because it's essential to survive. And yet, it's also seen as the source of death. The first time people really have an encounter with water in the Bible is in Genesis chapter 6, when the whole earth is flooded and everything dies that's not on the ark. When the Israelites are fleeing Egypt from their slavery, they encounter a large body of water and they're stuck between death by the encroaching Egyptian army or death by drowning. Jonah is thrown into the sea, to the depths of Sheol, where the dead go. And then Jesus' disciples are on a boat and on a large body of water. If that's not terrifying enough, they're hit with a terrifying storm and they're sure the boat is going to capsize, they're going to sink and drown. And then on top of that, they see what looks like a ghost. We know that it's Jesus walking, but when they first see it, if that's not a triple omen that death is right around the corner, I don't know what is. And there's this tension around water, even in Scripture. This thing that gives life can also take it. But the very first time that we see water in the Bible is in the second verse. The first verse says, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." The second verse says, "The earth was void and without form, and the Spirit hovered over the waters." I think in this thing that gives life and takes it, water, we just might learn something about spirit, because that's where the Spirit was in the beginning, over the water. The ancient sages and the rabbis would teach that water actually acts as a curtain that hides the spiritual. It masks the world from spiritual things. So when Israel is fleeing the Egyptian army and they make it to the Red Sea and they are faced with death on both sides, God parts the waters so that they can walk into their salvation, so that they can go to the promised land safely, securely, with everything that they need. And what's happening here is that God is not simply saving Israel in the physical, but he's demonstrating that his salvation, the type of salvation he ultimately wants to provide, is to peel back the waters and save the spirit. But to be saved in the Spirit looks like walking through the depths of Sheol, a watery grave. It looks like walking through death to get to the other side and experience true, everlasting, eternal, full life. And that doesn't sound too appealing to a lot of us. To blindly walk into something spirit that isn't dependent on what I can see, taste, touch, hear, put my hands on, feel, smell, interact with in a very tangible, real world sense of the word. But it would mean to have to silence those voices that say, this is crazy, what do you think you're doing? You're insane, that doesn't make any sense. Walking across the Red Sea, that just looks like death. And I think on some level we would certainly have to put to death those voices that try to keep us from experiencing God's type of salvation. And then I thought how interesting it is that it seems to be much harder for adults to be willing to acknowledge the Spirit, to walk in the Spirit, to believe in God, and yet that's something that children also are much better at doing. Much more willing, much more ready. That thing that we might be afraid to explore and discover, peel back the curtain and discover what's actually there for a child. They seem to always be eager and ready to dive right in to the water. But I'm just some dumb Christian sitting on a lake thinking about water. What do I know? I'll catch you guys later. Love you guys.